Welcome to Products That Count, the August edition. How many of you here have heard about Products That Count before you signed up? That's pretty awesome. How many of you have been to an event before? Well, not too bad. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Products That Count. So Products That Count is a community of about 17,000 strong. Product managers, entrepreneurs, designers, etc. Started in the Bay Area in San Francisco. We now have chapters in Seattle, San Jose, and New York. And the goal is really to get product people together, bring you guys some wonderful programming like we have tonight. So monthly speaker series, we have a newsletter, we have podcasts, we have executive retreats to really talk about how to make products great, or as we like to say, how to make products count. So before we get started, before I introduce Sarah, I just want to say thank you to DigitalOcean. Say hi to Monifa over there, our wonderful host, DigitalOcean, for the venue and the food, the drinks, etc. And also thank you to our sponsors, Amplitude and mParticle. All right, that's all out of the way. I want to introduce our speaker tonight. Very excited to have her. So she is currently the COO at Crisis Text Line, formerly the VP of Product at Jet.com. She's worked at companies like Snapfish, Hotwire, etc. Very excited. Please put your hands together for Sarah Bernard.
Thank you. This is like a TED Talk thing. I'm going to take a photo of all of you so I can tell my mom what I did. Or my daughter, actually.
It's ready.
Thanks. Is that good? Okay. A couple of things. I'm going to go into Crisis Text Line and I'm going to show a whole bunch of slides that have really, really old websites, and you'll get a kick out of them. At the time, we thought that the designs were totally state-of-the-art, so please don't laugh too hard. We at Crisis Text Line are hiring. We have design positions, product positions, DevOps, senior engineering, mid-level engineering, all in New York, so tell your friends. And Alana and Jason are here if you want to talk to them after the talk. Okay. So just to get a sense, who are product managers? Great. Any designers? Yay. And any research people or engineers, research? Yeah. And which groups, is product all part of design and design part of product? Or do you guys all report into the same orgs? No? Yes? Okay. Most of my product organizations that I led had design reporting into product. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about is from that perspective, where design is really having to make a home for product. Product is having to make a home for design to fit in. So does anybody know what Crisis Text Line does? You do? Are you a volunteer? No, okay. Crisis Text Line is a service for people in crisis. We help them via text message. And it turns out that text messaging is this awesome medium for helping people in crisis, because when you're in crisis, if you're choking back words, it's actually really hard to get the information out, and it can be very intimidating to talk to somebody. You can also do it privately and anonymously. So think about a kid in a cafeteria who might be bullied at school. They can be texting in the cafeteria and none of their friends know what is going on, but they're getting help on the side. And Crisis Text Line is there 24 hours a day. We want to be there for these texters. And actually, there's 60 million people in the world each year that suffer from mental health issues. And these people are quietly struggling with things like anxiety, depression, eating disorders. They might be experiencing homophobia. They may have thoughts of self-harm or even thoughts of suicide. And Crisis Text Line trains its volunteers to help these people in conversations take them from a hot to a cool calm. So with 60 million people suffering every year, it's been really easy for us to grow. And the texter population, attracting them has been no problem for the most part. And we're a two-sided marketplace, so the hard part of our job has actually been attracting the volunteer crisis counselors and keeping them engaged, retaining them over time. We put 30 hours of training into getting them ready to be on the platform, so we want them to stick with us for the long term. And I came to Crisis Text Line after being at Jet for about 18 months. I came in February, and when I walked through the door, Nancy Loveland, who's the CEO, gave me this challenge of churn with our crisis counselors. The crisis counselors don't always stay, and actually we were losing more crisis counselors at that time than we were graduating and reactivating. And so then I gave the problem to Alana, who's sitting here, and she was our head of product. But what we realized was that it wasn't so much about fixing this number of churn that we were watching every day. It was really about giving the crisis counselors a very engaging experience. And the good news was we've given them the highest order purpose that you can give, which is we're giving them ways to impact another person's life or even save lives. So top of the pyramid, like totally handled. What we haven't done as much is serve these unspoken needs that the crisis counselors have. So unspoken needs are things like a sense of recognition for the skills and capabilities that they build as they're working with the texters, a sense of belonging to the community. We do have 4,000 crisis counselors who are active. We've trained about 17,000. So we knew that we needed to design the full program and experience for the crisis counselors. And the other thing that happened on my first day was we lost the only designer that we had. And we do have a great design intern who we're now making permanent, but hence we're hiring for design. So as I was thinking about my new role at Crisis Text Line, I reflected back on this career that I've had and thought about all the things that I would need to help Crisis Text Line learn to do as they brought in new designers to design this experience and figure out what's truly important to our crisis counselors. So as Andrea said, my experience in the internet world goes back to '99. I actually don't have a logo for the startup that I was working at in '99. We spent $88 million in 18 months, acquired 10 million customers, and then went out of business with the crash in 2001. And it was called More.com. We were an online drugstore. We had prescriptions, contact lenses, all the over-the-counter stuff, but totally crashed. And then I went to Baby Center, which was owned by Johnson & Johnson, and then Snapfish, Hotwire, owned by Expedia, and then onto Jet. And prior to that, I was in bricks and mortar stuff with Smith & Hawken catalog, and I did a stint selling men's neckties, the Jerry Garcia necktie that was really popular. So anyway, we have this challenge of absorbing designers into our product team and our engineering team, and we want to create an environment that is going to be inviting to them so that they can help us really surprise ourselves with great products that are great products and really consumer insights for our volunteer crisis counselors so that we can keep them engaged. And so I'm going to share tonight a framework that you can use to ensure that your product, engineering, and design teams have high-functioning, productive relationships. And first, I'm going to share what doesn't work. And so I reached out to old designers that I worked with and asked them for stories, kind of horror stories, of ways that the, quote, business people have talked to them in the past And they gave me a bunch of examples, and then we have this fabulous copywriter at Crisis Text Line, and he came up with these personas using children's book characters. And after I go through the 5 principles, I'm going to ask all of you to guess the positive persona of working with a designer, which you might be able to imagine some positive personas that go along with the 5 principles. But okay, so bad experiences working with product and business people for a designer. Starting with Bob the Builder, he likes to fix stuff. And Bob the Builder might say to a designer about the design, gosh, can you move the logo up to the upper left-hand corner and maybe take this image and move it further to the right and flip it out with this other image that I like better? And then let's change the copy to say this. And the designer walks away sort of scratching their head thinking, this is ridiculous. They're just telling me how to do my job. And what Bob the Builder could do, rather than just trying to fix the design, is talk about the core or root cause of what his reaction to the design is. And so he might say something like, this page feels really crowded. Can we look at the layout and the copy and maybe reduce the copy a little bit just so that we can get more breathing room? And then the designer can really go off and go to town with their skills and figure out how to get more breathing room. The Cheshire Cat is a prop. So when I took on my first design team, I couldn't imagine how I was going to manage designers because I wasn't a designer myself. And the Cheshire Cat kind of happens when people are self-conscious about the fact that they're not a designer. And so they start saying just completely illogical things because they're trying to use the language of design. And so they'll say things like, can we make this more elevated in a scrappy way? Or how can we make this louder but still keep it quiet? And the designers laugh at you behind your back when you say stuff like this. So you got to be really careful and let them, use their language, but use your own language and get them familiar with the goals that you have for the company or whatever your, problems are that you're solving with your product. Okay, Goldilocks. The Goldilocks syndrome this happens a lot in big companies when you have lots of layers of people coming to design reviews. So it can happen if there's a different person at the same design review looking at the designs. And so the designer may get feedback in the initial meeting saying, this is really too, this photo is way too big. Can we make it smaller? And then the next design review comes up, it's a different set of people, and they're like, it's so small. And then the designer makes it bigger, and then the big boss shows up, and the boss is like, this is way too big. We got to make this small. And it's been completely unproductive for the designer. So you really have to be careful to be consistent with who's attending the design reviews. And I'll talk a little more about design reviews and the principles. And then Veruca Salt. Do you guys know Veruca Salt? She just wants it now. And and everybody wants to please. Designers in particular want to please, especially if relations are strained. And when somebody gives a challenge of, just give it to me now, let's just get this done, people skip steps. And the steps in the design process and product leaders know this more than anybody. The steps are so important not to compromise. So Veruca Salt, we had this at JET. When I first arrived, we had a little bit of time in an engineering sprint, and we wanted to do the right thing and feed the beast and slip some features in. And there was a merchandiser who wanted a deal flag. And we thought it was going to be really simple, and the designer pumped out a deal flag. We slapped it up on the website. And then the next merchandiser said, oh my God, that's so cool. I have fresh product. Give me a fresh flag. I need, show that it's refrigerated. And then another designer said, oh, they got a deal flag? I want a clearance flag. And what what really should have happened in that whole process was the designer needed to step back, think about a design system for icons, and come up with some standards and a standard iconography system for our pages. And sure enough, like as they started just responding to these everyday needs, because everybody wanted it now, we got the feedback later that the pages were cluttered. And so it does come back and bite you, and you have to stick to your standards. The last two, Amelia Bedelia is these are just annoying things that business people do. Amelia Bedelia is really literal. The designer who gave me feedback for this, she said that she actually had a business person say, is that FPO going to be in the final image? Which is, for placement only. And then the P in the pod is just where somebody's obsessing on a detail that isn't productive to obsess on, like a single word in the copy and whether it's the or and it's not helpful. So these, get disgruntled about these and use it as your negative role model. And then we'll go into some of the 5 principles. So again, think about characters that, it won't be 5 characters that embody all 5 principles. It's 1 character. He's pretty amazing. Okay. Self-awareness. So the first principle is self-awareness, and it starts with all of us who aren't designers admitting that we're not designers. And really this applies to any role in the team. Understand each other's roles and where the strengths are. And what's interesting with design, so back probably in my baby center days, which was around 2001 to 2006, we actually believed that designers should not facilitate user research because the industry thinking was they're too emotionally attached to the design or the solution. So don't let them facilitate because they'll lead the user to just approve whatever the idea was. And actually, product people and engineers, anybody can be just as emotionally attached to the solution that they're putting forward. So what I've done with user research is we try to train the team first, watch people who are working with the users and who aren't afraid to lean in when a user is struggling. What our typical reaction is in watching a user use a product is to jump in and save them. It's just the nice thing to do for somebody. But if you can step back and really let them watch them struggle and curiously lean in and ask what is going on, the person will usually tell you exactly what's going on, and you don't have to save them. And so we saw this at Hotwire. I put this design up because we had been training the team on how to do user research, and this was product people as well as designers. And we had this very introverted designer who wasn't very talkative, but he was so comfortable watching users struggle, and he was so reassuring as they were struggling. They'd just sort of share everything. So we were always trying to get him to be the facilitator. So anyway, self-awareness is really important, and certainly bring it to your relationship with the designer and know what the designer is good at and not good at, and lean into their strengths. Okay, empathy. I talked a little bit about empathy in the last one, but I like to come in with teams and use empathy as a bridge builder across functions. So often the first thing that I'll do is get everybody together and we'll do a day of watching users with our product. And at Baby Center, isn't this hilarious? Look at these tabs. So this was like state of the art. The fact that we got a second layer of tabs with these little circles, we were so proud of that. And Yeah, it was really funny. My daughter she's a millennial, and she was looking at this the other day. She's like, oh my God, the tabs are crazy. So we went from this design to this updated design, and that was even better. But still the tabs. But anyway, Baby Center was one of the first websites to have customer reviews. And vendors immediately cut us off because they did not want any customers commenting in public about their product. That was just like horror for them. And so a lot of my job was running around convincing them that this was a good thing and that they could get really valuable product feedback and improve their products. And we got a couple of stroller vendors to do that with us based on the reviews, and then it became the centerpiece of why we should be allowed to have product reviews. But we watched customers in labs with the product reviews, and they would first go to the most negative reviews that they could find, read them because it was fun and interesting, and then they'd go up and read all the positives and decide if the negative reviews were trustworthy, and then they'd make their own decision with that. And reviews were really important back then because people were afraid to give their money to websites, and so it was all about building up confidence just to hit the buy button. So fast forward to Hotwire, and when I was interviewing for my role at Hotwire, the CEO, we were sitting at coffee, and he was like, oh my God, we're launching products and it's actually hurting our business. I don't know what's going on. It's the same team that we've had. We're doing the same stuff that we did as a startup, but none of it's working. Come help. And so we did our labs, and they had just launched customer reviews, and it killed, he was right, it killed their conversion rate, which was awful. And the design team had taken, the design team was in charge of research. It was not product, and they were a big waterfall org. So they did their research at the very end of the build and showed it to customers, and they were like, well, this might be problematic, but let's go out anyway because we put all these resources into building it. And they went out, and the conversion rate tanked. And what happened with, so Hotwire is opaque hotels, and you don't know the hotel that you're going to get until you hit the buy button. And so customers roll the dice, so to speak, when they hit the buy button, but they get a really good price, so they can get a 5-star hotel for 4-star prices. And so what was happening with reviews and these star ratings was customers would go to the first negative reviews, because that was where they start, and then they'd bail. There was no way that you were going to build their confidence enough to roll the dice after reading a negative review. So we ended up adding a bunch of like these thumbs up, thumbs down, and our sort was all based on a lot of these things. The thumbs up, the percentage of ratings that were thumbs up, the star ratings. We started playing around with adding photos to give them more information and confidence. But there was clearly a ton of research that should have been done at the very beginning of the process with the teams. So again, Veruca Salt, don't be like her and skip the process of showing your designs early and often to the customer, and then really use it as a bridge builder between designers and product, so that you're all seeing the same thing and the same struggles, and there's a fair amount of alignment of the problem and the solution. Okay, the next one is self-management. And self-management, how many product leaders, like you own a P&L or? Okay, good. So this is really your job with the designers. And self-management is all about not over-prescribing goals and heavy financials or probably metrics for the designer to solve specifically with their ideas, particularly not in the early stages of the design. And this is a Hotwire example. We were very late to the mobile game and which was ironic because Hotwire's business was last-minute hotels. The closer you got to the arrival date, the more the price. It's still true. Like shop Hotwire and Priceline, they're really good deals. The closer you get to your arrival date, the more prices drop because once a hotel doesn't sell that room, it's lost revenue forever. And so we were building a mobile app, and the mobile team started watching users. They did incredibly creative user testing. They would go to airports, go to ride the buses on airport rental car buses and watch users and talk to them. And and they came back and said, so customers are booking these hotels as they're walking. Like they're literally holding their phone and walking. And we've got to get this down to 3 clicks. And so we had a click for the search, a click to choose the hotel, and then a 1-click checkout. But the hotels for Hotwire had, it had become our cash cow. It was the biggest revenue generator for the site, far bigger than air, and car was our highest growth. But as a result of being our cash cow, we had built all these features on top of it. Like we upsold insurance before you checked out, and we had a bunch of opt-in terms and conditions and different things that the customer had to agree to so that we'd reduce customer service calls because we were opaque and customers would get disappointed and then they'd call and say, I accidentally hit the buy button, sorry, and want a refund. So anyway, I really had to let go of a lot of those ancillary needs that we had on the website as we were launching the app. And I kept clear in my head that the goal of the app was adoption first because we were so late. And so anything that we could do to get people to download the app, start using it, make it easy, was going to benefit us in the long run, and then we could start to bring some of these things back. So I had to stick my neck out in terms of saying we can forego the insurance revenue, it's the right thing to do. And then I had to stick my neck out with the legal team to get them to agree to roll a lot of the T's and C's into the single buy button. And we got to this 1-click thing. And then the designer also came forward and said, by the way, we want to launch late. And the reason is we want to build this itinerary. And I was like, really? Like, we were like, literally, we were like 6 months behind other websites, and I just wanted to get the thing out. And they said, no, really, this itinerary is really important. We've watched users, and they're going to need it. And so we held, I think it was 2 weeks that we held it up, so it wasn't drastic. But when we launched this, we immediately went to a 5-star app, and customers were specifically calling out this itinerary. So they had really done their homework, which was great to see. And the itinerary became the reason that we were, well, the ratings became the reason that we were featured in the App Store, which then pushed all the downloads, and it was this nice flywheel effect. So it took a bunch of self-management, but winning product and the team was just awesome because they came back and delighted us. So, and we didn't obsess on the little business prescriptive things that we wanted to do, which is why I put the P in the pod there. Okay, inspire. As a product leader, it is kind of scary to have designers reporting into you because some of us, like myself, come from backgrounds like computer science and neuroscience and pretty scientific things, and to have a creative reporting into you can be scary, not knowing how you're going to keep them inspired. And the secret is they inspire themselves. And so when I looked, and seriously, when I looked back at the teams that truly came up with net new solutions to things, they were the teams that had these funny self-organized ceremonies. So the team at Snapfish had this every Tuesday. Judy, who was the creative director, would pull everybody together in a meeting room and they'd have tea. And we were a global company, so we had all traveled to different areas of the world, and everybody brought their international tea. And they'd bring fun little finger foods, and they'd have tea and look at each other's designs and give each other pleasant feedback. And I was like, are they working fast enough? But, and then the Hotwire team would take one Tuesday every month and go to the SF MoMA so that they could be inspired with the museum. And the JET team they were actually really interested in design teams that had become central to an org's purpose, so design-led organizations, basically, and they would bring the leaders of those design teams in and give inspirational talks to them. So, every design team is going to be different, but that inspiration time really helped them come back with great new experiences. And this experience was something that a Hotwire designer whose name is Cielo, and she now teaches online courses about photography with your iPhone. And a lot of her photographs are now on those billboards for Apple, which is cool to see. But what she did here was she was coming up with new motions for the iPad and the phone experience that allowed the customer to get search results and never leave the page to go to a product detail page. And she basically dealt with this fall-off pattern that you typically have on sites where you just lose people as they go through the funnel, and she made that part of the funnel just go away, which was awesome. Okay, design leadership. It's really, so design now in Silicon Valley, and I've experienced it here in New York, is the most competitive role in tech. And it's actually sorry, Jason, it's more competitive than engineering. And it's really important that we retain our designers and keep them engaged and growing in their roles. And the way that we've done this, when I looked back over my career, was creating a really specific process for the design critique or the design review with the business. And it used to be that we would have, the owner of the product or the business sponsor would control that whole meeting and be very specific about what kind of feedback people could get. And more, and at JET, we were very specific about this, that the designer absolutely owned the whole critique. And ideally, they were presenting their designs in the medium that customers were using. So even though it's nicer to view a design from the widescreen, we would look at the phone first because the majority of our traffic was via mobile. And at JET, the design team there took complete responsibility for the choices that they made with the design, why it was solving the business problem that we had, and how it was going to help the product make whatever metrics or goals that we had for it. So what you're seeing here, JET did a 3-month project where they went out and studied deal seekers, customers who were looking for the thrill of the deal or wanting better prices than what they were getting on the regular websites. And they came up with this innovation through that 3-month ethnography project, and then also through their labs where we brought customers in weekly and bi-weekly at times. They innovated this cart that was called the Smart Cart, and when you added products to the cart, you could see prices dropping. And the prices dropped on the page as well as in the cart. And they actually elicited user, as they were doing this research, the user was watching it and said, "Oh, I get it, prices drop as you shop." And then that became a tagline for a lot of the advertising that we did. So, so the designers felt leadership in those environments, in those critiques, and they had the highest satisfaction ratings in the company. They had the least attrition. And this was a lot to accomplish for a market right now where designers can really call the shots. So yay for the Jet design team. And again, you can't be like Bob the Builder and tell them what to do. You've got to let them solve the problem. And then this, I had to show this because this is snappish. The design innovation here was going from this hideous green and blue background to the white. And that was a big deal. And then we moved on to actually make these. We were a photo site, and we had to use these small thumbnails because our server capacity was so big, and it took so much server memory to produce the photos on the page, and so we were balancing it with speed, and it was just old technology, to be honest. And so the next rev after that had much bigger photos, but pretty ugly for a while. Okay, so those are the 5 principles. Any guesses who encapsulates these qualities? Storybook characters? No guesses? Okay, so self-awareness, empathy for the customer, self-management, inspiration, design, leadership. This is all stuff that Alana's going to have to do. And what she's going to have to be like Dumbledore. So, so Dumbledore, if you think this actually really works, Dumbledore, so use it as your little mnemonic to remember these things. Dumbledore was self-aware enough to surround himself with the Order of the Phoenix, which were all those expert wizards who helped him take on Voldemort. And then he was completely empathetic to his customer, who were the students of Hogwarts. He self-managed so that he allowed Hermione and Ron and Harry to learn themselves as opposed to him doing something for them, which in turn was very inspirational for them. And then they actually ended up taking on the leadership role amongst the Order of Phoenix, is that what it was called, to fight off Voldemort. So there's your good persona to leave you with in the 5 principles. That's it. Yeah, and please fill out Net Promoter so I can get feedback. Yeah, questions? Hanley?
Hey, thanks for that, Sarah. So I'll probably ask you more questions after this. So I'll just get really granular. I think on your 3rd slide, you had one with designing or creating for crisis text line and looking at different users. I think one user group you had was the deaf and hard of hearing community. Could you elaborate on how you worked with them?
Yeah, you guys might actually. So we do a couple of things. We have a crisis counselor committee for accessibility specifically. And actually, one of our engineers who was a crisis counselor is heading up that committee, and it's all accessible. It's all about the accessibility that we build into our product for the crisis counselors, and they give feedback as we're building features so that we know what types of things are hard or easy in terms of the tools that the crisis counselor might use. For the texters, I think we expect the texters are using their phone as they would normally use. I don't know, do we get feedback from the texter point of view at all? Okay.
Hi. I was wondering if you had any tips or advice for design teams of one. So we're a small company. I'm the head of product there, and we're hiring for kind of a solo designer.
Yeah.
But they would have to kind of help us grow that culture, and
Yep.
And I was wondering, like, teams of designers are obviously critical for design reviews and whatnot, but how can we create that with a team of one?
Yeah. So one thing, are you Agile? Yeah. Kanban for the designer can work really well, so that you just have a running list instead of trying to divide the person up across a whole bunch of initiatives that might be aligned. I think it's really important that you're clear on how you can spread the time out over, because you won't be able to fully dedicate to individual projects probably. The other thing that I would do is try to create some outside relationships with other design teams potentially, or other product groups, so that you can at least make sure that they're getting exposed, or if they have those relationships, find ways to bring other designers in, just to ensure that inspirational piece, I think. And then probably have and Alana, you can speak. We have a design team of one right now, and he's sick today. He was going to come, but we've probably made him sick. I was going to say, make sure that all the workload goes through one person like you, and don't leave it up to them, because they do want to be nice and help. And try not to let your CEO give them PowerPoints to do, because a lot of I've experienced design teams that didn't have good advocates for them. Like when I came into Snapfish, there was this whole marketing team that was having our great web designers do PowerPoints for their, sales pitches and stuff. And I think that's a shame.
Hi there. Just a question about how younger people are sending texts these days. I have a little brother and sister who are 15. And I feel like when I send them a old person text message, they look at me like I'm a dinosaur, because all their friends are sending messages on Instagram, Snapchat, etc. So just wanted to know if you had any thoughts on expanding your service to, the next generation of messenger service beyond standard text.
Yeah, actually we are. It's not just standard text. So, and yet, our highest growth population of people in crisis, which is really sad, is the younger ages. So with a lot under the age of 13. So we have a relationship. We actually appear on YouTube quite a bit if you're searching for pretty horrific types of videos, like ways to hurt yourself or kill yourself. And we also appear in WhatsApp. Well, not yet. WhatsApp. We're trying to get onto WhatsApp. We have some issues with them because we can't restrict locations, and we only have our service in Canada, UK, and US. So we can't go loud there. But we're on Facebook Messenger, Kik, which, do you know what Kik is? It's actually for young people. What other, are we on any other? Yeah. So we are trying to expand. We're also trying to really understand where people go when they're in crisis. So we're working on our SEO and making sure that we're coming up where people are searching. Like Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade, there was a lot of articles trending at that time, and we wanted to be appearing in all of that. And our media, our media work often the New York Times will list us at the bottom of articles, and so people find us that way.
Can you speak to some of the logistics for who's in the design-led design crates?
Yes. Generally, we try, the design-led, yes. Yeah, like the ones that I was talking about at Jet. Yeah, we try to keep it very small. So the product owner, for sure, the designer, usually stakeholders, like that might be a marketing team or a merchandising team, anybody whose revenue or numbers are affected, but not all of them, like one who represents it, and ideally the decision maker. And then sometimes bosses. So at Jet, when we were doing a pretty important feature release, my boss, who was the president, would come to the design review, and I would go to ones before. I always tried to go leading up to that meeting so that A, she didn't give feedback that we had already given, or B, they were prepared for the types of things that she was going to be interested in. For the,
And frequency?
Quidzy?
And frequency?
Oh, frequency, sorry. Let's see, at least every 2 weeks, because there was probably critical mass changes done in sprints. And if there isn't I've seen product teams that just, like, if you have a leader who really wants to see every last design, having a set time every week where anybody can come in and show those designs. And I've done that with user testing too, where you have a very set time every week that people can sign up for sessions with customers. It makes it really easy for the team to have no excuses, essentially, for showing their ideas to customers.
You made a comment during your conversation. Sometimes as a product person, you feel like, hey, get it done fast. And I think personally, I get that sense when I work with design team, like, can we move faster? How do you make sure that you're able to give them the creativity to come up with a solution, but also have the timelines and the pressure of delivering customer value and business value? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the question was, as product people, we want things fast. And how do we balance that with ensuring the time? And I think doing things in small pieces is probably the best way to do that. When you're trying to take on something really, really big and boil the ocean, it gets pretty hard to work in fast elements. There are no elements when it's really big.
Hi.
Hi.
I actually have a follow-up question to the Goldilocks scenario. So as organizations get bigger, right, you typically have like more and more stakeholders who have a lot of power in your organization.
Yeah.
And in those types of like larger group meetings, you don't get a lot of honest feedback, right? You'll get like office dynamics or something that kind of prevents that from happening. Mm-hmm. So there's a tendency to start sliding towards like individual one-on-one meetings. How do you go and prevent the slide of like a meeting like that, where like people have this tendency to try to like pull you off to a one-on-one to give you individualized feedback?
Well, you can be strict with the guidelines and just say, this is the period of time for feedback. And I think there was somewhere that I was at, we gave people 24 hours after the design review because a lot of people wouldn't show up. And so, but we'd get in trouble if we just moved forward because people would then nix it later in the stage or something. But the guidelines only are broken in general. And I would try to have conversations in group settings. This sounds weird, but what is it about the environment that is preventing people from speaking up in the meeting itself and addressing some of those root causes? I know that's not easy, but and often I will bring in outsider, like I've used a lot of outside coaches for when we were transforming companies to be more agile. Those outside coaches would address with executives if we were creating an environment of fear that might make people quiet or less likely to speak up. So sometimes you can go out and bring third parties in to be the bad guy and help with that. That is hard. You have to have a lot of buy-in from the top to do that, basically. And then if you really can't break that environment down, try to strategically prepare with people. Like just pick who are the people that are going to be loudest and whose feedback you really have to have, and just do separate meetings with them if that's what it takes. But feedback is we don't have to listen to all feedback.
So I think you mentioned previously that you had a bit of a neuroscience background as well.
Yeah, cognitive science.
Cool. Oh, cognitive science. Same, UCSD.
Oh, nice. Cognitive
Uh,
science leads to product people. It's so weird.
Yeah.
I did it like before product was a thing, and then it took me 15 years in my career to get into product.
Okay, so that's my question. Like, what was that 15 years? How did you get from neuroscience
The
to
progression.
product management?
Yeah. So for anybody that doesn't know, cognitive science is the study of artificial and human intelligence, and I was doing computer science, and I couldn't get through the last year of calculus. And so it's such a drag, and I didn't know enough at my age to ask for help. I could have gotten a minor in computer science, and I didn't do it. But cognitive science, also, I just really liked more things than just one subject matter. And cognitive science was neuroscience, cognitive psychology, linguistics, because we studied language in the brain to figure out language patterns in computers. And linguistics was, and then philosophy to discuss, can computers truly be as intelligent and evolved as humans? And faith tripped us up with that. So anyway, product is a very multidisciplinary trade, and we think that cognitive science is generating a lot of people that then migrate into product because it's somewhat technical, somewhat philosophical, somewhat very user-centric in a way, the way that you think about humans and how we think. And now, really with the data and artificial intelligence and what we're doing with data science, it's just a very, very nice fit. So encourage people to go into CogSci. It's a fun area. There were only 2 schools that did it when I did it. So UCSD, that's good. Other questions?
How do you think about building out a roadmap for designers and how that plays into?
Yeah.
So like giving designers enough lead time to do that research, but then also preparing them for the fact that things might change and our priorities might shift. How do you think about that?
Yeah. So it's very similar to engineering. Jason and I we have work to do for our engineering. I mean, he has a great roadmap for all of our security and data and all of that. But so those screenshots that I showed of Snapfish, where we went from that awful blue background to the green, which before that it was orange, like it was just crazy loud. And we had a creative director who basically, like, she kind of did this as a skunkworks thing where she said, it's so bad, we've got to just start upgrading, and we're going to have to do this stuff on the side. And she really lobbied for it because, no one has time with the revenue goals and or the metric goals that you might have for a website. So in many ways, you got to give the designers space first and foremost to do that kind of thinking and planning. And ideally, if you have a director or somebody who's somewhat in management, they can take that time. And then and the other thing that we did at Snapfish, we were blockaded. So unless if somebody shared photos, if I shared my photos with you, you couldn't view the photos unless you created an account and logged in. It was a big barrier. And yet we were selling products, and we needed to get people through that. So we really needed to rethink the site architecture or the user, like the information architecture. And so we actually made that a major initiative and treated it just like a product, even though it was very much about the design. And we spent about 3 months organizing our taxonomy and our all the products that we had, because over the years, literal products that we were selling were getting added to random tabs, and we had weird tabs all over the place. And so that information architecture project gave us a very nice roadmap, and it whet the appetite of the business to get behind it and start to prioritize it. So a lot of it is doing the vision work so that you get the business excited and they'll support you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So as Sarah mentioned, since we're all product people, we love feedback. We're feedback nerds. At the end of the evening, you should get an email. It has a very, very short survey. Please take it. It helps make our programs better. We're able to get feedback for our speakers. So please take the survey. We also have a little game where because the survey has NPS scores, and we try to have our speakers go up against each other. I know, we do. Surprise.
So it'd be great if I could beat Gib Biddle.
Yes, you need to beat Gib.
Send me bad feedback on the side.
So Gib and Chris are the two people to beat. But I think we can get Sarah at the very, very top. So please make sure you take the survey. One, again, it helps all of us, right? So better programming helps our speakers, etc. Alrighty, couple more PSAs, and then we will let you guys enjoy more pizza and drinks, etc. We have a portion in the evening where we get to do shout outs. What are shout outs? 15 seconds of fame for anybody here. If you are hiring, if you are looking for a job, if you have a product that you want somebody to try out, please come on to the front and just share. 15 seconds. Come on and don't be shy. I see somebody.
Hi, my name is Jessica Mink. I'm the head of product at Call9. We're an emergency medical company who do direct patient care inside nursing homes so people don't have to go to the ER. And we're hiring an experienced product manager, but you don't have to be from a healthcare background, though if you are, that's cool too.
Hello, I'm Kalpana Banerjee from Audible.com. We are a company that tells stories. We'd love to have product managers. We are looking to hire in several areas of our product group. So in the mobile space is something that I personally am hiring. We're looking for senior directors and directors. So please, if anybody is interested, we are looking to hire. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Esther Sportello, a product manager at Capital One, the commercial bank. Not my direct team, but a partner team is looking for designers, UX and UI, or someone who enjoys both. Would love to entertain designers.
Hi, my name is Jen. I'm head of product at a company called Troops. So we're a small growing company, just raised our Series B, and we're basically a Slack integration bot that aims to serve sales and customer-facing personas by making their lives easier so they don't have to touch Salesforce anymore and they can just work within Slack. So if you know anyone who's a product designer, a product manager, or senior engineers who are really excited about working in a canvas like Slack, which is, the highest, the fastest growing company of all time or something, let me know. Thanks, Paul.
Hi, I'm Divya, and I own a small agency. It's called Ad Collateral. We are trying to break through into retail brands, and I just wanted to shout out and see if there's a need for designers. All our marketing material and collateral that we create is run against analytics tools, and it's optimized for better delivery against email or display or whatever your marketing media is. Thank you.
All right. Last PSA. So next month's speaker, it's a little awkward, is actually me. So bittersweet, I will be stepping back from Products That Count. But the great news is that we have a new chapter head, and I'm actually going to put him on the spot to say hello. Please welcome Tim Hawley. He is the VP of Product at SoulCycle and will be heading up the New York City chapter of Products That Count starting next month.
Thank you. Hi. Mildly awkward. I didn't know that was going to happen. Well, great to meet you guys. Looking forward to the next year, 18 months or so of great talks and great speakers and getting to know folks. So.
He's also hiring, so that's why I put him on the spot. Yes, I know. Alrighty, so next month's talk, it will be around, listen, we all build product roadmaps, so I thought it would be fun to talk about building a product career roadmap. So let's talk about careers, and hopefully we'll see you guys next month. So we'll end on a happy, fun note. I will call on Michelle to help with our lovely raffle. Everybody should have a raffle ticket. I know, lots of fun stuff at Products That Count, guys. So take out your raffle ticket, and we're gonna do our lovely drawing. I know, it's Michelle from First Dibs. I believe they're also hiring. Yes. There you go. And we have this lovely Sammy the Shark slippers. Ronald, please hold it up. Okay, so DigitalOcean, who is our host, their mascot or their logo is Sammy the Shark. So these lovely slippers. You could be the proud owner. So let's do it. Ready?
Yeah. She calls me just because I like doing this in funny voices. Are you ready? All right. Your number is 1394889.
Yes, Hanley, congratulations. Round of applause for Hanley for winning the awesome Sammy slippers. All right, we'll do one more. We have a really nice Moleskine Products That Count notebook.
One, 3949117. No? Anyone?
Oh, no, we have a winner. All right. Congratulations. Patrick, here you go. Thank you. All right, guys, thanks so much for coming tonight. Enjoy the rest of the pizza, drinks, etc. Sarah will still be here. We're here until about 9 o'clock, and thanks again for coming.